I have this condition called low latent inhibition. Now, low latent inhibition affects about 20% of the population and affects everyone in a different way. So basically, low latent inhibition is the opposite to what a normal, or how a normal brain works. So a normal brain would go, the first time they ever saw a drink bottle, they'd be like, oh, this is a drink bottle. And you would observe what information you would need to observe about a new object. Okay, it's like a cylinder, it's a vessel, you know, it holds water, it has a lid, you drink out of it, and then the water's gone, and then you fill it up again. Someone with low latent inhibition is very different, because someone, like a normal human being, they would get all the information that they need out of this bottle the first time they saw a bottle. And every time after that, their brain automatically simplifies that information, and it says, oh, that's a bottle. I already know what that does. We don't need to reanalyze that. So it's the way that the brain learns to cope with such a big world. It simplifies information, so it's not constantly absorbing new information all the time. So when you walk through the world and there's a lot of things to absorb, your brain sort of blocks out the things you've already seen before, you've already learned about before, so that you don't have a million thoughts running through your head at the same time. Now, someone with low latent inhibition, every time they see this drink bottle, they're seeing it again and again for the first time, but they're building on the information that they had before. So every time I see something on a subconscious level, my brain is always getting new information from it. So you become really obsessed with the why. You're like, but why did someone make that drink bottle like that, you know? What is it made out of? Could it have been made differently? Who was the first person that ever made that drink bottle? And I think for me, this obsession with the why has kind of haunted me my whole life. It's exactly why my parents thought I was different as a child. They thought I was disobedient because I'm always going, but why? But why? Authority doesn't matter to people with low latent inhibition, because they will never do something just because you tell them that you should do it. They're going to do what they think is right because they're capable of making up their own mind. They can make incredible jumps in logic from, you know, A, N, and X, whereas most people's brains work on an A, B, and C. We're criticized for seeing things that other people don't believe exist because their world is so small and ours is so big. And I think a lot of highly functioning individuals fall into this category. Now, 20% of the population have it, but not many people are that lucky. Low latent inhibition with a really low IQ is the formula for autism and the formula for schizophrenia. Basically, your brain is subconsciously absorbing so much information, so much stimuli. You don't have the computer processor in your brain to process it. So basically, you just get this blockage, this overwhelming information, and your brain just has this like spaz attack. Whereas if you were lucky enough to have a really high IQ, your brain is able to process the sheer amount of information that you observe about the world around you. But it kind of is like a blessing and a curse. I still get to points when I'm in a really unfamiliar environment where I can only take so much. Going to the supermarket, it's not just about anxiety. It's not just about a fear of people. It's not just about a fear of being in public. Every single label, every single object, every single product, every single aisle from floor to ceiling, every single speck, every single little bit of dirt, my brain is absorbing. And there is only so much that it can take at one time. And if I stay in that environment for a long period of time, it's like this backlog of information, and all I need to do is be alone. I need to go to a safe, familiar place so my brain can switch off, it can disassociate, and it can clear this backlog of files and processing that needs to be done. And if I don't, I completely shut down. I'm almost rocking back and forward on the ground being like, la, 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 la. I'm freaking out because my brain is hitting this brick wall. And that is really, really hard for me because I'm so used to my thoughts being quick. And all of a sudden when there's this brick wall in my brain and I'm hitting it again and again and I can't form a thought in my mind, that terrifies me. It's one of the reasons I don't take any medications that slow down my brain processing ability, because I actually freak out. And sure, it might be good for me, but it's also very detrimental for me because I pride myself on the ability to think quick. And any medication that interferes with my ability to think really undermines who I am as a person. And I think that's what's so frustrating for me about being mentally ill, is I can't problem solve all of my problems. I try. I mean, getting to the bottom of the why is of utmost importance to me. It's what makes me incredibly good at self-awareness, at understanding what's going on with me. but it doesn't necessarily mean that I can fix it. And if you're someone that prides themselves on problem solving and sorting things out on your own and figuring out what's going on and fixing yourself, it's really hard to ask for help, because in doing that, you're admitting that you can't do it on your own, that there is a problem that you can't fix. And that's just so out of your nature, because problem solving is who you are. And if you can't solve a problem, then you are nothing, then you are worthless. And I think low latent inhibition is something really cool that everyone should Google. It's really cool to understand. You know, it might seem like a superpower, and I think in a way, people with low latent inhibition and a high IQ, they're actually creative and innovative geniuses. You'll find anyone from, you know, Einstein to Da Vinci had a certain amount of low latent inhibition because they could observe things about the world, and they asked questions that no one else could even think about asking, because they just, you know, they didn't want to understand things, and they couldn't understand them on such like an in-depth level. But at the same time, it is a really big curse, because nobody understands you. And I think with me, that's where the borderline personality disorder really came into it. It wasn't because there was something wrong with me. There was definitely something different about me. But my parents didn't understand my mind. They attributed all the questions I was asking as being a defiant little bitch. But at the same time, I was just really curious about the world. I was really intelligent. I was a child adult. And they find when they do studies on child adults and really intelligent children, they often have parents who don't understand them, parents who reject them because they think, what is this creature? I don't get it. And it's one of the reasons so many people relate to me, because I can understand people. I can understand a wide range of people because I've been, you know, assessing them and investigating them, analyzing them. You know, I'm really into sort of working out what drives people, understanding people. And that's part of the low latent inhibition. So I can understand a lot of people, or I can at least sit there and listen. So a lot of people feel a connection to me, but I don't really feel a connection to many people in this world. Out of everyone I meet, it's probably like 1 in 1,000 that I will actually feel connected to, that I will actually feel understands me. And I think that's really hard, because you go through your life feeling like an outcast, but you don't look like an outcast because you can fit into any single class. You're like a social butterfly. You know, you get along with everyone, but you never really know that your place in this world. And I think one person said to me once, which was like really, really important. You know, I felt like I didn't fit in. I felt like I was alienated. You know, I still do to a point from everyone around me. I feel like I'm functioning on like a different level. And if you Google low latent inhibition, you'll see that as a lot of symptoms. And someone told me once, they gave me this great bit of advice. They said, you know what, Jess, there's nothing wrong with you. In fact, there might be everything right with you. But the people around you are not your people. That there are people like you out there in the world, and there might be really few and far between, and you are not going to find them in a small country town. You might not even find them in a huge city. But there are people who are capable of appreciating what you are, who are open-minded enough to understand the possibilities of the things that your mind can comprehend. And I think that is where I really, really sort of struggle, because being mentally ill and knowing that you have the capacity to be extraordinary, that you have these incredible thoughts and these incredible ideas, but you don't function enough to put them into practice. It's really hard. My doctors often ask me, are you bored? Are you bored? Well, of course I'm fucking bored. I feel like I'm a cyborg, like lying in bed with my brain ticking over with all of these great creative ideas, and I'm unable to put anything into practice. You know, I wish I could put probes into my brain and turn those thoughts into my writing, because my brain, you know, processes so much quicker than my body could ever comprehend. And I think, sure, I'm bored. Sure, I'd love to do things, but fixing the boredom is not really fixing the issue. I think fixing my functioning capacity is the first step, because the boredom kind of goes along with that. Sure, I'd love to study. Sure, I'd love to work. Sure, I'd love to occupy my mind and my body at the same time, but I can't. My illness prevents me from doing that right now, and that's what I've been working on for 6 years, is trying to get that bit sorted so that I can live the life that I want to live, so I could, you know, maybe even live the life that I was promised that I would live, which kind of all fell apart and was really, really devastating for me, because this was not the life that I wanted. You know, nobody wants this life. And when you're a highly functioning individual, when you're an intelligent human being, you will never be satisfied with being mentally ill. And I think that's why it really annoys me when people say to me that I choose to live like this, that I enjoy living like this, because who on earth would enjoy living like this? I want so much more for myself, and it pains me every single day that I can't have more for myself. It really is frustrating. It irritates me. And it's one of the primary things that I think gets me down the majority of the time. And I think it's a really cruel world that we live in. And I think when you can see the things that we see, when you can feel people's emotions without them even speaking, when you can understand their thoughts, and when you can understand their point of view, from the tone of their voice, from their body language, without even, consciously paying attention to those things, and you're mentally ill, and it's not just the spoken stigma that affects you, but it's the way that people act around you. It's people's attitudes. It's the unspoken ways they judge you. That is really, really hard to comprehend. And I think a lot of people will say to you, oh, this is mind reading, you're just putting your thoughts into people's heads. Well, sure, I understand that. And I think for a lot of people that might be the case. But if you're smart enough, if you have spent enough time in your life observing people so you can analyze, cause and effect, then you can see subtle signs within people, and you know exactly what they mean without even speaking, or with the little words that they speak. I think things like that haunt you. Like, if you can remember every single thing that ever happened to you, my mind is like a video. Like, I play scenes out as if I'm watching movies in my head, and every memory is filed. Every moment of my life is in this giant filing cabinet, and I can just pick up a file and rewatch it at any time in my life, and I will remember that moment. Not just the words that were spoken, but the clothing that person wore, and where we were sitting, where we were standing, what emotions I was feeling, what emotions they were feeling. I think that's why I'm so haunted by my past, because I can't unsee the things that I have seen. I can't unfeel the things that I have felt, and I have been trying to numb that pain for a long time. I've tried to get over that, and I guess to a certain extent I have, that you can forgive, and maybe it's not about forgiveness, maybe it's just about acceptance and moving on, understanding that things happen and they're outside of your control. But I will never forget. No matter how hard I try, I can't forget those things. I can put them beside me, I can push them away, but the way that I deal with those things is analyzing them. I believe there's lessons in everything, and everything happens for a reason. And if I need to get to the bottom of the why, and I'm a problem solver, I need to understand why that happened in order to prevent it from happening in the future. And I think that's one of the reasons people say they have the most faith in my recovery, because I come in leaps and bounds through self-reflection of what I have learned from all the shit that has happened in my life. And I think taking ownership of that is a really big first step.